Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're checking out this blue-red Opus combo deck, which features a lot of new cards from Secrets of Strixhaven, and arguably the most important one being the Molten-Core Maestro, a 2-mana 2/2 with Menace, saying whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then if 5 or more mana was spent to cast that spell, we also get to add an amount of red mana equal to the Maestro's power. So this has the potential to get out of hand rather quickly, and especially once we start generating extra mana with it, there's some infinite combos that this deck is capable of setting up. And then another creature that rewards us for casting those instants and sorceries is the Colorstorm Stallion as a 3-mana 3/3 with Ward 1 and Haste, and then Opus first gives it +1/+1 until end of turn, but if 5 or more mana was spent, instead we get to create a token that's a copy of the Stallion, and that token copy will also have the same ability, so the more expensive spells we cast, the more Stallions we can generate, and that can also get out of hand rather quickly. So these are the primary win conditions, and then the rest of the deck is a lot of instants and sorceries, ideally that we can cast for at least 5 mana to trigger all these Opus effects. So at 1 mana there's the Burst Lightning, which we can use as early removal to deal 2 damage, but later we can also kick it to deal 4 damage, in which case we spent 5 mana on it, so we can make extra mana with the Maestro and make extra copies of the Stallion. At 2 mana there's the Traumatic Critique, which we can use for X = 0 just to draw 2 and discard to help set up our graveyard, which will be useful for our infinite combo, but we can also cast it for X = 3, and then we get to make extra mana and make extra Stallions in the process, and eventually once we make infinite mana, we can also use it to just burn the opponent out by sinking all our mana into it, so it also doubles up as a finisher. Then at 5 mana, there's Ashling's Command as an instant that lets us choose 2 out of the following 4 modes. Can make a token that's a copy of target elemental we control. The Stallion happens to be an elemental, so now if we copy it with Ashling's Command, we'll end up with 2 extra copies, one from the Opus, one from the command, so that can also get out of hand rather quickly. Then we can also choose to draw 2 cards, which we'll often go for. Can also deal 2 damage to each creature target opponent controls, so it also doubles up as a sweeper. Or we can create 2 treasure tokens. And the treasure tokens are very useful once we start generating mana with the Maestro, since the treasures can fix for blue mana, while the Maestro covers the red mana for us, so that's also incredibly useful. And then Rapture's Moment is incredible if we can cast it with some of our creatures in play as a 6-mana sorcery that lets us draw 3, discard 2, and then add double blue, triple red to our mana pool. So with the extra mana from Rapture's Moment, we can once again cast another instant or sorcery with 5 mana total to trigger Opus once again. So this is how we can pretty easily storm off if we've got the right setup for it. And then we get to the card that can enable the infinite loop, and that is Sorcerous Schemes. 4 mana is not enough to trigger the second Opus abilities, but the flashback will be able to, and then we get to return an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard or exiled card with flashback we own back to our hand, in addition to also adding a red mana. So if we manage to generate a big enough Maestro and have 2 Sorcerous Schemes in circulation, we can start flashing back Sorcerous Schemes to get back 1 from exile, which in turn can get back any spell from our graveyard, once again flash it back, getting back the schemes, rinse and repeat, and now we're not only generating infinite mana, but also getting every spell from our graveyard back into our hand, so we can now infinitely loop a Burst Lightning, or just generate infinite mana and burn the opponent out with a Critique. So there's a lot of viable ways to close out the game from there, or we might have a Stallion, and we can just make infinite Stallions and make them infinitely large as well to attack for lethal. And then rounding out the deck, we also have the full set of Tablet of Discovery, which has been amazing in this archetype as a 3-mana artifact that mills a card when it enters, so we get to play that card this turn. So if we haven't played a land yet, we can even play a land that we've milled. And then the tablet taps for a red to cast our regular spells, double red for instants and sorceries. So this is a great way to build up to 5 or 6 mana to even cast a Rapture's Moment on the following turn already. So this card has been amazing. And then if we happen to mill a Sorcerous Schemes, that's also additional value, since now it's ready in the graveyard to be flashed back. Then we also have 2 copies of Stock Up, just to kind of help find all those combo pieces if we don't have them already. And then Prismari Charm also gives us a flexible answer early on. Can either split up 2 damage to deal with a bunch of 1 toughness creatures, especially good against any green decks with Llanowar Elves. Can also return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. That can be useful against decks that maybe present a large creature that our burn spells cannot handle. Can also maybe bounce artifacts and enchantments with it if necessary. And then we can also always Surveil 2 and then draw a card, so it's not a bad cantrip, and can also help fill the graveyard to maybe set up our Sorcerer Schemes, which is of course a card we're happy to discard with a Critique as well, since we usually prefer having the flashback available so it can immediately trigger the Stallion and the Maestro. And then the mana base is all 4-offs, including Basic Island and Mountain, and then we've got the luxury in blue-red of having all these rare dual lands, with the Verge, Spire Bluff still in Standard, Steam Vents, and we even recently got the Stormcarved Coast, so the mana is pretty much perfect. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Got the early interaction. And then mostly looking for some more 5 mana cards to copy the Stallion. Although Burst Lightning and Critique can both be cast for 5 mana if needed. So maybe a green Landfall deck our opponent is playing. Can just cycle the Critique if we'd like. So maybe the new green-white Landfall deck. Okay. So X equals 0 means it enters with 2/1 counters. So our opponent will have Erode as a removal spell. And what to discard? Burst Lightning is still going to have its uses. The Critique could be useful once we get the Tablet in play to build up our mana some more. But I kind of like the 2 lands. I think I am going for Tablet next turn instead of Stallion, although that also has its merit. Yeah, maybe it's Critique. And then Schemes is another good one to eventually discard. So I'll play the tablets. Best case scenario, mill another Schemes. And we still have Burst Lightning up. Llanowar Elves we can clean up with either Burst Lightning or Ashling's Command. For now, I just take 2. So, yeah, don't feel the need to Burst Lightning right now. Just take my draw step. And then, yeah, could already play the Stallion here. Possible our opponent's got a road up, but they won't be able to pay the ward. And then next turn we can maybe start going off with Ashling's Command, copying the Stallion. There's the Ascension. So we don't mind it if our opponent removes a counter from itself, because then Ashling's Command can deal 2 to all their creatures to wipe the board. And then Fabled Passage, while it can get planes for Erode, cannot take out the Stallion yet. Do we see another Llanowar Elves? That would be perfect. Alright. Well, that's going to be the best Ashling's Command I've ever cast. So deal 2. And then I think we just copy the Stallion. A land returns. So the Ascension is now active. And I'll hang on to the Burst Lightning to play it kicked next turn. Well, I guess never mind. Could have killed them right now with the 3 extra prowess triggers. But who doesn't want to take another turn in this spot? So ban from all Earthbands. And our opponent scoops it up anyway. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, missing blue mana. And yeah, currently cannot cast much of anything. Although with the third land we get Tablet, and then we're not too far from a Rapturous Moment, discarding the schemes. So, it's not a great hand by any means, but we only have 2 mountains left in the deck, everything else generates blue. And Authority means that the Stallion is not going to be at its best. So we'll get the Maestro in play, although I don't have high hopes for it sticking around. So there's blue-whites, maybe artifacts instead of pure control. And we found blue mana. Alright, so with a Tablet, I'm potentially setting up Rapturous Moment next turn, but I would need to draw land first. So I don't hate going for a stock up, just to try and hit my land drops that way. And then give up on another Sorcerer Schemes, that's fine. Could also avoid attacking if we want to play around the Saw Blades, which the artifact deck tends to run. Alright, now a stock up, so might be just blue-white control after all. So then could also cast Sorcerer Schemes, getting back stock up, which is good value. And then the Maestro is almost at a spot where we can go infinite with the second schemes. Okay, so this turn I would prefer going Tablet into stock up. See if that works. Opponent's gonna counter that one. I can still critique, although it's not gonna give me any mana back. I'll just let damage happen. Opponent untaps. And a Seam Rip is a clean answer for the Maestro. Technically have Prismari Charm to bounce one of their enchantments and get it back temporarily. So we'll just draw 2 discard. And then cast stock up with 3 mana to pay for No More Lies versus Ashling's Command. Although Ashling's Command I can cast after we resolve a Rapturous Moment, so I'll start here. If they want to use a hard counter, be my guest. And then, again, the Stallion's incredibly awkward with the Authority in play. So then I think we take Tablet and another command. And then best case scenario, mill Schemes or a Burst Lightning I can still cast. Our opponent will use their No More Lies now. So it makes it more likely that we can resolve the Rapturous Moment. Felidar Retreat was a bit unexpected, but we can handle a bunch of 2/2 tokens with Ashling's Command. Okay, so this is my window for Rapturous Moments. Ditching a land. And Burst Lightning isn't particularly exciting here either. So then I can go Tablets into Ashling's Command. Alright, mill the Maestro, so we'll play that instead. And then still have Critique available for x = 1. If our opponent decides to put +1 counters on their tokens, the commands may not be as effective. But I imagine they're going to go wide first. Alright, opponent did go for +1 counters after all. So take 3. And then do I critique? Just to get a counter on Maestro may be worth it. Even though critique for 3 could have dealt with 1 token. I'm not too concerned. Alright, so if our opponent doesn't have any relevant interaction, there's a chance I can just combo kill them here. There's 1 Sorcerer Schemes in circulation. So for now I'll just draw 2, make 2 treasures. And see what happens. That resolves. Found a Prismari Charm. So we can Sorcerer Schemes back a Rapturous Moment. That would make 5 mana. There's an argument for casting some cheaper spells just to get more +1 counters on them first. Our opponent will counter that one. We still get the mana. So then, Ashley's Command, draw 2. Maybe now we deal 2 damage. Although we still have a decent amount of card draw left, so I believe that I can combo, so I'll go for the treasures instead. Okay, find a Stallion, but again with Authority, I'm not going to be able to attack with the copies. So then, maybe I should Prismari Charm now. Surveil to draw. Looking for Rapturous Moment, Sorcerer Schemes. Tablets is kind of like a redraw, so that's probably worth keeping. And wow, opponent scoops it up. I guess we did have a lot of cards in hand, so likely to generate infinite mana this turn and win the game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a functional hand, especially if the Maestro can survive for a few turns, although not counting on it. At least with double tablet we can build up our mana for critique, and hopefully draw into some more big spells. Turn 1 Swamp. Do they have Requiting Hex? So far so good. It is mono black. And a Trajectory takes out the Maestro. And there's more. Is this maybe a Duress? Yep. Alright, our hand's pretty redundant. Takes a Critique. Play Tablet, hope to mill Sorcerer Schemes. Mill the Stallion instead. The longer we can wait on playing this, the more value we can get. So mono black Demons here with a Sanctuary. Deep Cavern Bats now has to take the Critique. And Stallion the draw. I think I still go for Tablet first, and then if I mill a land, I can still maybe play the Stallion as well. Okay, probably worth 2 damage just to get it in play now. Our hand is empty, but we have a lot of mana, so we've got a lot of good top decks. Bat gets in for 1. And a Slasher is a scary one. Stock up isn't bad. Make sure to use the tablet mana. And then Critique plus Stallion. We can Critique for X equals 3 if we'd like, just to clear the Slasher. Or I can ping the Bat to get the other Critique back. I mean, I guess if I just deal with the Bat next turn, I'll have more Stallions to throw their way. So that seems fine. So we want to do it for X equals 3 at least, so I can trigger the Stallion. And then what to discard. At this point, maybe I don't care enough about the Maestro. And I might prefer the extra mana. And then I'll attack with... Doesn't matter. Is our opponent blocking is the question. If I only send 1 Stallion, then they're more likely to want to block. But I guess that's okay, or I can just keep both in play to make more copies next turn. I think that makes more sense. But if they have a Bloodletter, they're gonna force me to block. Otherwise the Slasher would win on the spot. Opponent's got the Annex instead. So now the Slasher attacks, I can take it and maybe win the game next turn. So they're gonna keep it back. Although they know about Critique, I can play Stallion into another Critique. And then we should have enough Stallions to overpower them. So, can make a bunch of mana here. And either taking out Slasher or going face are both fine. I guess I can go face and then still Prismari Charm to bounce the Slasher to maximize my damage. And this will be another trigger. So this should be more than enough. And there we have it. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a functional hand. Still missing some of our creatures to win the game with. Tablet would have been nice, but I'll give it a shot. Got some early interaction at least. Start with tapped Steam Vents. Opponent black-white. With a Gorehound, so it's a graveyard deck. We drew the Maestro. So yeah, don't mind getting that in play already. And then Critique for 1 can answer Gorehound next turn. We do want to start building up those +1 counters on the Maestro so it can generate mana. And Zealot is next. Could also just Burst Lightning the Zealots. And then keep the Critique in hand. I'll wait on the Critique just to see what our opponent does, which might influence my decision. Even though we missed out on a +1 counter. So Gorehound gets to Surveil. And they keep on top. So since I don't have any amazing 4-drop, I may as well just untap and then Critique for 1 or 2. Schemes is, yeah, part 1 of the combo. Can now discard it with the Critique. So, can go ahead and attack. And the plan is Critique the Gorehound. But we can see if they're going to play a small creature first, planning to Surveil with it, and then we can take it out in response. If they just attack for 2, I don't mind taking it. Opponent is missing double white, so they cannot erase the past just yet. Sephiroth is next. Okay, so take out the Gorehound still. Could also do it for 1. And still maybe draw into another removal spell. I think I'm happy with schemes in the graveyard. Opponent can sack the Sage, draw a card, drain for 1. And I untap with Ashling's Command available. So yeah, there's a possibility I can already combo this turn. Ashling's Command, draw 2, make 2 treasures. I'll get 5 mana from the Maestro. So it basically paid for itself with the treasures fixing my colors. And then now we can Rapture's Moments. So I just need to find another Sorcerer Schemes. And we did. So I can discard that alongside a land, maybe. Alright, and then Sorcerer Schemes back, Rapture's Moments. And we are already making infinite mana here on turn 5. So now I can flashback Sorcerer Schemes, get back the other one from exile. Casting one from hand will not generate mana, but we've got plenty of mana to spare. And then there's a Critique in the graveyard I can get back to just burn my opponent out here. So that's easy enough. And there we have it. Awesome. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Our hand is slow to get set up, but with double tablet we can generate a lot of mana. So I'll give it a shot and hope we're not up against the fastest aggro deck. Okay, tapped Monastery is, I guess, promising. Means it's likely a slower control deck. Typically don't mind playing against control. Although this might be the 4-color control deck with the resonating loot. And I don't have many answers to the loot, just Prismari Charm to bounce it. Once they get the loot in play, they will be pretty far ahead. Could also just be a Mardu deck, I guess. Play tablets. And best case, mill another Sorcerer Schemes. Stock up, we can also maybe Schemes back at some point. So the game goes on. Possible this is just a Mardu burn deck. Alright, Cease hits the graveyard. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what to make of this yet. And an Appraiser I see, so that's gonna discover into the card that... nope. Alright, I'm wrong again. Good Soul's Flanker, I guess, is also graveyard hate. I thought they would be discovering into the Spirit token generator, which would then give them the additional +1 counters. Yeah, just a Flanker, gain 2, scry 2. So I could wipe up the opponent's creatures with an Ashling's command. A Rapture's Moment now also an option. Could even go tablets and then still play Ashling's command afterwards. A Rapture's Moment into Ashling's command also sounds good, to be fair. And then I'll have more mana to leverage the second tablet if I mill something expensive. So, can discard the Sorcerer Schemes, although seeing all this graveyard hate makes me more hesitant. But I think it's still correct. And then commands, deal 2, draw 2 seems fine. Alright, so we've got a bunch more tablets. Schemes can maybe get back the Rapture's Moment if we get the chance. And then we still need our creatures to help close out the game. So yeah, looks like a Mardu control deck. Start with the tablets, and then I can still flash back the Schemes. Prismari Charm I could also cast. Yeah, I guess we'll start there. So tap this for double red. Surveil to draw card. And then keep the Rapture's Moments. Critique seems fine too. And then, yeah, I'll just pass it back. Hang on to Critique to cast it for more than just 1 or 2. Opponent activates Monastery, hitting Inevitable Defeat, so that can target a tablet here. Also gets around the ward from the Stallion, so that's another key interaction. So, yeah. If our opponent's packing a lot of removal, it's going to be tricky to keep our creatures on the board for long. But if they ever tap out, then Maestro could potentially steal it out of nowhere, if we have our graveyard set up correctly. Opponent will hit the tablets. So they are almost tapped out. I think I'll start with a tablet, since I don't have anything too exciting to cast with the mana from Rapture's Moment. So we milled a tapped land. Could still cast a Moment now. And then possible I'll draw into something worth casting. Okay, Sorcerer Schemes ×2. So we're just missing the Maestro now. Seeing how much graveyard hate they have, I think I want to keep at least one Schemes in hand. Can discard one and a land. And then, how do we want to proceed? I can also flash this back, get back a Rapture's Moment, which seems kind of cool. And then I have 1 mana floating, so not enough to really play the tablet here. So I'll just play the tapped Spire Bluff and pass. Even have to discard to hand size. I mean, so far we've got plenty of life to spare. Opponent's not applying any meaningful pressure. So I don't hit my spots, but can assume that they'll have some more answers in hand. Even if Schemes is in exile, we can still retrieve it with Schemes from hand to fire off our Infinite Loop. And for opponents playing the full set of Inevitable Defeat and Lightning Helix, it's not realistic to really burn them out with a critique without going infinite first. So I don't think that's the plan. Opponent's gonna hit both Rapture's Moment and Schemes. So we now have 2 Schemes in exile. And a Sage of the Skies is, I guess, their win condition here. So they get a pair of 2/3 life-linking flyers. Still 2 mana up for possible interaction. So, yeah, we've got a few ways to handle the Sage. Also makes sense with the Geological Appraiser, you can discover into it and then get the extra copy. I think we still kick things off with another Rapture's Moment here. Hoping to draw into a Maestro, and then we can maybe piece something together. Alternatively, I can just critique for 3, answer a Sage, take it from there, which I also don't hate. Maybe play another tablet first. See what we mill. Another land. Alright, so critique for 3. More lanes. And then I could critique for 3 again if I'd like. Don't know if it's worth shocking myself, it maybe isn't. So I'll just pass it back. Dealt with the token first, since I can also technically sack it to a Fountain Port. Sage is gonna attack. Yeah, I think I take it out here. Keep my life total high. They could take out their own Sage to fizzle the draw discard from critique. So we somehow haven't drawn any of our 8 creatures yet, seeing half of the deck. So we should get there soon. There's the Maestro, but of course our opponent does now have 1,000,000 mana up. I can still kind of trigger it with some of our instants. So it may be worth still going for. Just play Maestro, cast a Rapture's Moment, and then with Ashling's commands I can maybe make some leftover mana. Yeah, I mean, if I pass, our opponent gets to leverage Monastery and Fountain Port, so it's not like things are getting better for me. So, let's give it a shot. And then we want to start with the Sorcery Speed card that would still trigger the Maestro. Could have also cast a 1 mana Burst Lightning just to get extra counters. Could still maybe do it in response. Inevitable Defeat, so there's no real way around that. I could again Burst Lightning and then still Ashling's command. I would get 4 mana. So it wouldn't leave me in a terrible spot. See if they have a response to that. They don't. So we'll draw 2, make 2 treasures. And then we could potentially keep things going. Although now we drew the Stallion, so we might want to set that up instead. And then there's still a Rapture's Moment on the stack. Last known information still gives me 4 mana from the Maestro that died, and we drew a backup. So, can discard the schemes. Play Maestro. And then now, can probably hang on to the Stallion. And let us flashback schemes for Rapture's Moments. I guess maybe I should have gotten back the schemes from Exile, since now there's no schemes in circulation anymore. But, still get to generate a bunch of mana here. So maybe it is Stallion beatdown after all. So critique for 3. Critique for 3 again. And then I have double kick Burst Lightning, so we might just have it here regardless. Yeah, I don't think I need Stallion anymore. Can Rapture's Moment. Again, if I draw into the last schemes, we're still infinite, but we may not have to go infinite. So can play another Maestro, but the game should be decided already. Ashling's Command, Rapture's Moment, both excellent. Alright, this is impressive. Ashling's Command can also copy the Stallion. Although draw 2, make 2 treasures might still be preferable. I know we have lethal, but may as well see how far we can go. 7 cards remain, there's the schemes, so yeah. Schemes get back schemes, and then we're still infinite here. But I guess we'll get it over with. Schemes get back critique. With only 7 cards remaining, I do have to be somewhat careful. Might go for the token limits. This might end in a draw if I crash the server. Okay, I guess that's good enough. Well, we started this turn without any creatures in play, so this is not a bad way to end things. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a decent hand. Got our 2 win conditions. Tablet can ramp into the command. Opponent may be on red aggro. So we don't have a lot of time to set up. Maestro somewhat likely to get answered. But then we still have the Stallion plus command to try and take over. And a Challenger, always scary. Yeah, I mean, we know this is not going to end well for the Maestro, but I'll still go for it. Against red aggro, it's not about using your spells optimally, it's about using them before you're dead. And they are splashing black, likely for the fling effect from Sellsword. Another Challenger into Burst Lightning, so yeah, we're getting overwhelmed now. And Burst Lightning the draw. So I could go Tablet into Burst Lightning at the very least. Or I can play Stallion, basically hoping they don't have a way of triggering Prowess. But that seems a bit ambitious. And best case scenario, we mill a Burst Lightning. Have to do this now because of Prowess. Alright, I mean, next turn I could maybe Ashling's Command, dealing 2 to everything, but it's possible I'm already dead. Yeah, Felonious Rage finds a Slick Shots. So if they have any spell left, we're certainly dead. Okay, I'm at 2. So yeah, gonna main phase this Ashling's Command, I think, or I can wait until... doesn't matter. Exile the top card, you may play it until the end of your next turn, so... doesn't matter when we time it here. So Ashling's Commands deal 2, and then Treasures versus drawing 2 cards. Treasures would leave up Critique for another creature, which is probably better. So 2 damage here, 2 treasures here. Percussionist triggers. And I could play the Stallion now. Although next turn I can still play the Stallion and copy it. The problem is Critique here can only be cast for once, so it's not going to deal with the Challenger. So then I might be better off with Stallion now. And keep it on defense. Certainly that to a lot of top decks. Alright, so far so good. So drew a Sorcerer Schemes. So then now I could Critique for 3. Just so we get a copy of Stallion. Can do that at instant speed. Schemes would be getting back Ashling's Command, but it does not make an extra Stallion at the moment. So I think we play land, keep up Critique. And then if they don't play a haste creature, I'll still cast it on their face. Gotta hope they don't draw their own burn spell, pretty much. And that's a land, so they are maybe flooding a bit. So I can Critique for 5. And find Ashling's Commands. So, yes, Power Bluff isn't particularly useful. Although I'm wondering if Schemes in the graveyard is better, so I can Ashling's Commands, making Treasure. Then I think I would still rather have a 4-mana Schemes in hand. Because yeah, Flashback Schemes does generate more Stallions as well. So Command. And then we'll copy. Make 2 Treasures. Copy Stallion, make 2 treasures. And then we can Schemes back a Burst Lightning. And then with our 1 red mana I can still cast it. So that should be lethal here. So unless they were sandbagging their own burn spell. Wow, that was a very close one. Opponent definitely got a bit unlucky to be flooding out here near the end. But I'll take it. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with a decent hand. Got the early Charm for interaction, especially good if our opponent plays another 1 toughness creature. And then Tablet sets up Ashling's Command, which can also maybe wipe their board. So if they have the classic Elves into Bantermole opening, we could have dealt with Earthbended Land and the Elves. Turns out it's a Frenzied Baloth instead. So if they're on a more aggressive build, that could actually be more problematic for me. So now do I still want to deal with Elves? It does maybe avoid them casting Ouroboros, which they might have. Although bouncing Ouroboros is also an option. Eventually we'll want a Ashling's Command, but that's still pretty far away. So yeah, I think we deal with Elves then. And then next turn Tablet, turn after Command. Second Baloth still gets swept up by the Command, but yeah, we're down to 10 in the meantime, so the haste creatures are adding up. But I think it's still the play here. Mill the land. Best case was a Burst Lightning, which we could have still cast. So I'm not just dead to a third Baloth, but would leave me at 1. Talent is actually pretty annoying, since now Baloth would survive the Ashling's command. I can Rapturous Moment. Can do a lot of this at instant speed as well, with a command into Prismari Charm line. Although, maybe I'm better off casting the Rapturous Moment just to cycle through the deck some more. And then Schemes is happy to be in the graveyard. 1 Steam Vents can go. So we get 5 mana. Yeah, Critique for 3 only answers 1 Baloth. So it has to be deal 2, make 2 treasure. And then I can Prismari Charm 1 and 1. So we're still dead to another Baloth. But at least we put ourselves in a decent spot. Alright, Michelangelo, more +1 counter synergy. So now a 5/5. I can Critique for 5 if I go to 1 here with the Steam Vents. I guess that's still worth it. Could also double Burst Lightning and Critique to take care of it, so I don't have to shock myself. But the difference between 3 and 1 life doesn't seem all that big here. So yeah. I'm just gonna Critique for 5. Found a Stallion, which I probably want to keep. Although, let's see. Yeah, next turn I could play Stallion and then still flash back the Schemes at the very least if I keep the land. So maybe I ditch the Burst Lightning, even though it's not super intuitive. But yeah, being able to make a copy of Stallion gives me an extra blocker, and then we can make more copies with a moment. At least that's the plan. Alright, let's see what they've got. Another Michelangelo makes sense. But yeah, Burst Lightning would not have necessarily helped. Now Maestro is interesting. I can go Maestro into Rapturous Moment, into Flashback Schemes. Yeah, that might be better than Stallion. Although Stallion guarantees extra blockers, which is maybe more important. But with the Maestro there's a chance I can go off much harder. Alright, let's try it. So we get 3 mana, found Ashling's commands, and another Schemes. Alright, so this is promising. Do I keep Stallion or stock up? At this point, we might prefer the stock up. So then I could stock up and then still cast a command afterwards, so the command makes more mana. Find a Rapturous Moment ×2. So then we want to draw, make treasure. And then we can still Rapturous Moment with the treasure. And then now the Maestro should be big enough where we can go infinite with the Sorceress Schemes. Alright. Not bad. Get another Maestro in play. Schemes, get back. Maybe a Rapturous Moment for now. And then the other Schemes wants to get back Schemes. But I guess we have enough mana where I can already just Critique for lethal. But yeah, if we wanted to showcase the infinite with Schemes, you just flashback Schemes, get the one from exile. rinse and repeat, and then you can also get spells back from the graveyard to close it out. But yeah, we've got plenty of mana to critique for lethal. So yeah, we were up against it here at 1 life, but we just needed 1 turn with a Maestro to be able to combo off. So yeah, not bad. And we get to rank up here as well. Awesome. So yeah, we got to see this blue-red Maestro combo deck in action, and while it may have underperformed at the Pro Tour, it was still good enough for a lot of people to want to register this sort of archetype, and in Best of 1 it seems to hold its own. While it can take a while to get set up, once you do get your engine set up, it can take over incredibly quickly, and it has just enough interaction where it should be able to survive some of the more aggressive decks in the format if they don't have their best possible draws. So yeah, overall seems like a solid deck with a lot of potential. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.